My name is Jason Fixon. I'm the Sports and Audio Specialist for Daktronics. Today we'll be discussing the All-Sport console and how to operate that. That is the controller that we use to operate scoreboards. We'll discuss the handheld for the shot clock, play clock, the All-Sport itself, and the handheld for the main clock. With the All-Sport, this would be the All-Sport 5000 model, which is a very common model we'll use for scoreboards. With this, we basically have the console. We have it has a built-in keypad for when we want to do team name message centers. With these, when the console is new, you will get a whole stack of inserts with the console. So basically, you just pick the one for your sport, slide it into the console, and then on the left-hand side, it has a bunch of different codes on here. It depends on what model of scoreboard you have as to what code you would select. Primarily, about 95% of the time, you will select the top code, but once in a while, you might have to change and select some other ones. There is a spot where we can put a label for the code to use. So if you once have this figured out what code to use, we can put a label. When the consoles are new, you'll get a sheet. The sheet will have the different codes that you could possibly use. So you could just peel the sticker off of here, and you could place it onto your insert. Now, to turn the console on the back side, there's a little power switch. We can just flip that power switch up. That will turn it on. So I'll go ahead and turn my console on. The first thing that pops up is it's going to say which version of firmware is on it, and it's going to go up to the next screen. Once in a while, the help desk will ask you what version of firmware you have. If you miss it, go ahead and just turn the console off. Turn it back on, and it says version 4.1.4. It comes up then with previous code, resume game. And it shows the code number that we were using last. I'm going to start a new game, so I will hit no. And it has my code number in here. If you have a radio, it'll show you what the radio is set to. You can either hit enter to keep it the same, or you can hit clear to modify. So right now this is set to broadcast 1, and the channel is set to 7. So that's what I have my radio set to. I'll go ahead and hit enter. And then it pops up, and we are in basketball mode. So it's got my clock on the top. Shows my home score, my guest score, and it shows what time should be on the shot clock. So in order to operate the console, I can have my one handheld here. This is for the game clock. I can hit start. It'll start the main clock. You can see the clock counting down. That's what it'll be showing on the scoreboard. And I can also operate my shot clock, so that time is counting down on here. If I stop my main clock, it will stop the shot time as well. There's a setting where you can turn that on and off. But this is primarily how you would operate it, is using the handhelds. Typically, you'd have one person running this handheld and another person running the shot clock handheld. You can also start and stop the main clock using the control keys on the All-Sport itself. You could also turn the horn on and off. So if I hit the horn button, the horn will go off. When this light is on, that means the horn is set to auto. So when the clock gets to 0, the horn will go off. If I stop the game and I need to add more time, all I have to do is hit set main clock. So right now we're at 7 minutes and 38 seconds. I could hit set main clock, and I could change it to 7 minutes and 40 seconds. So now my clock is 7 minutes and 40 seconds if we have to add some more time. I can, in order to put score on, I can hit score +2. It puts my home score. I have it set on for stat panels, so it asks me which player. I'll put a player number in. I'll hit enter. If your player is not entered into the roster, it'll ask if you want to add it. I'll hit enter to add it, and it'll put player 2. It'll give player 10 some points. Same thing with fouls. If I hit team fouls, it'll ask which player did the foul. You'll hit enter, and then it'll pop that up on the board as well. I have a button for set shot time, so this is I can adjust my shot time on there. When you're first starting a game, so if you're playing basketball, we'd have to, in order to get the stat panels to light up, you'd have to hit the mass substitution button for both the home and the guest. So with the mass substitution, that puts the players in game, or basically who is on the court. The console does not know who's actually playing, so if I hit the mass substitution button, I can put all my players in. And as you hear that beeping sound, every time you hit a button, the console will beep. This is there to let you know that you hit a button. I can do the same thing for the guests. I can put the guest players in. And I would put my guest players in. So now if I'd give a foul, I can just do a foul. I can give it to player 22, I put in a guess, and then it'll pop up on my stat panel. In the menu button, so I have the menu key here, I can go in here and change a bunch of settings. I can start a new game, I can do a new code, I can change dimming on the console. There's 10 different levels of dimming. I can have a menu for roster for home, roster for guest. I can do a display menu, and I can do edit settings. For now, we'll go into edit settings. In here, I can change the number of periods between 2 and 4. Right now, it's set to 4. And as I go through this, I'm going to hit the down arrow to scroll through. Some of the questions will ask yes or no on here. The clear button would be no, enter would be yes. If I would hit enter, it would scroll through, but it'd turn all the settings on. So I'm going to scroll through. So main clock mode, 1/10 of a second. So this is when it gets below a minute. Well, it'll show 1/10 of a second on the clock. So if that is yes, then I'll go through. I can set my main clock. Right now it shows the periods are 8 minutes long. You'll have to set that for whatever facility you're at for how long they need to be. Break times, you can set how long the break times are. Main clock for overtime, so you can set how long your overtimes are. 1/10 of a second on the shot clock, so this would be a setting that the NBA uses. They show 1/10 of a second on the shot clock when the shot time gets below 5 seconds. At the high school and college level, it's not used. It's only for the NBA. Shot time for the reset, this would be reset button number 1. You can set that for whatever number you need to set it to. Reset 2, you can set that to a different setting. This is a sync shot clock with main. So what that does is if the game clock is stopped, the shot time cannot run. Auto blank, so if you can't get a shot violation before the end of the period, if you have this yes, the shot clock will blank out. Timeouts, you can set how many timeouts there are. You can set the length of the timeout. You can have a warning time. You can have partial timeouts, the partial timeout time. You can have partial warning time. You can have timeout show on main, yes or no, so if you want the timeout time to show on the clock or not. FIBA mode is a basketball mode for international, so domestically we will have that set to no. Team score mode, update team player, so what that does is if you put points in, it'll ask you for that player number. Same thing with team foul, you have to turn that on if you want that on. The team fouls, so a 1-on-1 bonus is set to 7 in this case, or a 2-shot bonus is when it gets to 10, you can type that in. Electronic captions, you can turn those on and off. Typically you won't have to do those very often. Team fouls show on stat panel, so if you want to show the team fouls on the stats. You can have score by quarter, yes or no. You can have a switched output. Typically you would not be using those either. You can just leave those settings alone. And then you're going to do time of day. So what this allows you to do is run time of day on the scoreboard when you're not using it for game time. And those are all the settings in the menu. In order to operate the console, you can hit possession. So if I hit possession, it says home possession on, or if I hit guest, it would turn guest possession on. I can select my timeouts. All the keys are coded. Green are home. The orange ones here are guest. So that way you can keep the two sides separate. On the back side of the console, again, we have our power switch down here for turning the power on. We have RJ11, or it looks like a telephone jack. That's how the handhelds plug in using these cords. I have a 25-pin port. They might be using this for a signal out. I have my other, this one's for the main clock. Again, it's still just an RJ11 connection. I have my 3 outputs on the back of the console. I can use any 3 of these. It doesn't matter. They all output the same information. This one console has a radio in it, so it has a radio antenna. And I also have some indicator lights. I have signal, data, and power to let me know if my radio is getting power. So these are the connections you're going to see on the back of a console. If you arrive to a site and you can't find the insert, there is a pouch on the bottom. The inserts might be just shoved inside of here. So if they're inside of here, you can just tip it and get your insert out. And that's pretty much how to operate your All-Sport console. On our new consoles, the label that goes on the front by the LCD screen, there's a scan for operation and support. So this QR code, if you just take your smartphone, scan this code, it'll bring you into our knowledge base, so you can find some information on how to operate the console. So this will be good for self-support for customers or for anybody who's working on the scoreboards to find out how to operate the console. The older consoles, it would just be a label like this. It will not have the QR code, whereas the new one basically just changed it and added that QR code in. A lot of our scoreboards will come with a TNMC or Programmable Team Name Message Center. So in order to set that on our consoles, all I have to do is pull my insert out, and I have my keyboard on here. Now, on the indoor scoreboards, most of the time it will be 48 columns wide. So what this is how many LEDs across the Team Name Message Centers are. I have a choice of 16, 32, 48, or 64. The height, I don't have to mess with my height ones. And I have a single stroke and a double stroke button. So the single stroke, my verticals on the letters will be 1 LED wide. Double stroke, the letters would be 2 LEDs wide on the verticals. So in order to get in to be able to use the Team Name Message Center, I must go into Menu and scroll down to Roster for Home. I'll have to do the same thing for Guests, so I'll go into Home and I type in my team name. So now if I had to select anything, so typically your indoor ones are 48, I could set that. I could hit double stroke if I wanted to, and I could type in any name I want to have, so I just typed in here for home. Hit enter, and that'll put it up on the board. Abbreviation will not show on the scoreboard. That'd be if we're running some real-time data. I can edit my player numbers. I can enter my roster. I can clear some stats. And I can do the same thing for guest. So for guest, I can type in my guest name. So in terms of this one, I will use there for their team name. And then that will pop up on the board. I can do my different players if I wanted to put my players in. And that's how you would select your Team Name Message Center. Okay, I'm going to show you what happens if you do not have the width set. So when I was talking about how wide it is, I was talking about these LEDs across. So this Team Name Message Center is 48 LEDs across. If I set it to anything other than the right side, this is what's going to happen. So if I accidentally set it to 32 wide, as you notice, I have part of home and part of the guest on both of the stat panels, or the team name panels. So if you come across this, all it is a setting in the console. If I go back in to enter my home team name, I select 48 before I type. It will correct the Team Name Message Center. And this is what I was talking about. This one is set to single stroke, so the vertical is 1 LED wide. This is set to double stroke. The verticals are 2 LEDs wide.